So hey guys. The series name is What If Naruto Was Son of Mikoto? So let's start the series. The old clock tower in the heart of Kanahagaki chimed 7 times, its deep bells echoing across the rooftops and down into the empty streets where the evening patrols hadn't yet begun their rounds. In the western district, near the edge of the forest, a single light burned in a small apartment on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better decades. Naruto Uzumaki sat cross-legged on his threadbare futon, staring at his reflection in the small pocket mirror he'd found at the market last week. The face that stared back was familiar enough, sun-bright hair that stuck up in chaotic spikes, 3 faint whisker marks on each cheek, eyes the color of a summer sky. But it was the eyes that held his attention tonight. There was something different about them. Something he couldn't name. He'd felt it 3 days ago, during the Academy Taijutsu spar. He'd been paired with Kiba Inuzuka, who'd come at him with that predictable rush of his, all confidence and Akamaru-assisted tactics. Naruto had blocked, dodged, taken a hit to the ribs that would bruise for a week, and then something had happened. For just a moment, Kiba had seemed to slow down. Not really slow, but Naruto could see where the next punch would land before Kiba even started the motion. The path of his fist had appeared in Naruto's vision like a trail of smoke, and Naruto had stepped into the exact space where the punch wouldn't reach, landing a solid counter to Kiba's stomach that had sent the bigger boy stumbling back with genuine surprise on his face. Irika-sensei had blinked, looked at Naruto like he was seeing him for the first time, and then moved them on to the next pairing. But Naruto hadn't forgotten that moment. He'd replayed it 100 times since, trying to understand what had changed. Now, in the quiet of his empty apartment, he stared at his own eyes and wondered if they looked different. They didn't. Same blue. Same frustration staring back. "You're imagining things," he told his reflection. "You finally got lucky for once, and now you're making it into something it wasn't." But he didn't believe it. A growl from his stomach interrupted his thoughts, and Naruto sighed, checking the small clock on his nightstand. 7:15. He hadn't eaten since the bowl of instant ramen at noon, and his stomach was making its displeasure known in no uncertain terms. All right, he muttered, pushing himself up and grabbing his wallet from the small table by the door. "Ichiraku's it is." The night air hit him like a wall of summer heat as he stepped outside, thick and heavy with the promise of rain later. Naruto pulled his orange jacket tighter around himself and started down the dark street toward the main district, where the lights of restaurants and shops still burned bright. He was halfway there when he heard the voices. "Can't believe they let that thing walk around like a normal person. Should have been taken care of years ago, if you ask me." Naruto's feet slowed. His hands, shoved deep in his pockets, curled into fists. The voices came from an alley to his left, and through the gap between buildings he could see 3 figures, men, by the sound of them, probably drunk on sake and feeling brave in the dark. "Demon brat," one of them spat, and Naruto heard the wet sound of someone spitting on the ground. "Probably eats babies for breakfast." The others laughed, ugly and mean. Naruto kept walking. He'd learned this lesson years ago. Don't react. Don't give them the satisfaction. Keep your head down and keep moving. The Hokage's words echoed in his memory. "They don't understand, Naruto. They're afraid. But you can't let their fear make you into what they think you are." He almost made it past the alley. Almost. "Hey! It's him!" The shout stopped him cold. Naruto turned slowly, and there they were, 3 men, drunk and staggering, with the kind of hate in their eyes that Naruto had learned to recognize before he could read. The biggest one, a man with a shaved head and a scar across his nose, stepped forward. "Where do you think you're going, demon? Shouldn't you be locked up where you belong?" Naruto's jaw tightened. "I'm just going to get dinner. Leave me alone." "Dinner?" The man laughed, turning to his companions. "Hear that? The demon wants dinner. Maybe we should give him something to eat." He pulled a kunai from his pocket, the blade glinting in the dim light. "Steal." The other 2 laughed, but Naruto noticed they didn't move closer. Drunks looking for an easy target, hiding behind one loudmouth with a weapon. He'd seen this before too. "Just let me go," Naruto said, keeping his voice steady. "I haven't done anything to you." "You exist," the man said, and lunged. Something in Naruto's chest went cold. His body moved before his mind could catch up, ducking under the wild slash and stepping inside the man's reach. The same thing happened as in the spar. He could see it, the path of the kunai, the opening in the man's stance, the perfect angle to strike. His fist connected with the man's solar plexus, and the drunk folded like paper, air rushing from his lungs in a wheeze. The kunai clattered to the ground. The other 2 stared, shock wiping the meanness from their faces. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Naruto felt it, a burning behind his eyes, hot and sharp, like someone had pressed heated needles into his skull. He gasped, stumbling back, raising his hands to his face. The world swam, colors bleeding together, and when he blinked and looked up at the 2 remaining men, they were staring at him with expressions that had shifted from shock to something else entirely. Terror. His eyes, one of them whispered, crossing himself in a gesture Naruto didn't recognize. By the sage, his eyes. They ran. Both of them, grabbing their fallen companion and dragging him down the alley and out of sight, leaving Naruto alone in the street with his heart hammering and his eyes burning in a confusion so deep he thought he might drown in it. He stumbled to the nearest building and leaned against its wall, breathing hard. What had just happened? What had they seen? Naruto looked down at his reflection in a puddle of dirty water on the ground. The face that looked back was the same as always, same hair, same whisker marks, same blue eyes. But for just a moment, he could have sworn he saw red. The Hokage's office smelled of pipe smoke and old paper, a combination that Naruto had come to associate with safety. Not many places in the village felt safe, but the old man's office did. Had, ever since he was small enough to sit on the Hokage's lap and listen to stories about the first Hokage and his wife, about the founding of the village, about the will of fire that burned in every true Konoha shinobi's heart. Tonight, though, Naruto couldn't sit still. He paced in front of the Hokage's desk, words tumbling out of him in a flood that the third Hokage, old, kind-eyed Hiruzen Sarutobi, listened to with patient attention. And then they just ran, old man. They looked at me like I was a monster, more than usual, and I don't understand what happened. My eyes hurt, and for a second everything looked weird, and Naruto stopped, finally looking directly at the Hokage. What's wrong with me? Hiruzen set down his pipe, his old face creased with thought. For a long moment, he didn't speak, and in that silence Naruto felt something cold settle in his stomach. Lord Hokage? Naruto, Hiruzen said gently, come sit down. There's something I need to tell you. The words carried weight, the kind of weight that made Naruto's feet heavy as he crossed the office and lowered himself into the chair across from the desk. The Hokage's eyes held something Naruto couldn't name, sadness, maybe. Concern. And something else, something that looked almost like fear. I've known you since you were born, Naruto. I've watched you grow, watched you struggle, watched you face the village's cruelty with a spirit that would make any shinobi proud. Hiruzen leaned forward, folding his hands on the desk. And I've kept secrets from you. Secrets that weren't mine to keep, but that I protected because I believed it was the only way to keep you safe. Naruto's heart hammered. Secrets? About me? About your parents. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with years of silence. Naruto had asked about his parents before, when he was younger, but the answers had always been vague. They died when you were born. They were good people. They loved you. Nothing real. Nothing solid. What about them? Naruto's voice came out smaller than he wanted. Hiruzen sighed, a long, weary sound. Your mother, he stopped, seeming to choose his words carefully. Your mother was named Kushina. She was a remarkable woman, strong and spirited, with a temper that could shake mountains and a heart big enough to hold the whole village. A name. His mother had a name. Naruto clutched it like a lifeline. Kushina, he repeated. What happened to her? She died protecting you, Hiruzen said. The night you were born, something terrible happened. The nine-tailed fox attacked the village, and your parents gave their lives to stop it and to protect you. The nine tails. Naruto knew about that, of course. Everyone knew. It was the reason they looked at him the way they did, whispered the things they whispered. The demon fox was sealed inside him, he'd known that since he was old enough to understand. But he'd never known the rest. My father, Naruto said, the word strange on his tongue. Who was my father? Hiruzen was quiet for so long that Naruto thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful, measured. Your father was a man who loved your mother very much. He was brave, talented, and he gave his life to protect you and the village. That's not a name. No, Hiruzen agreed. It's not. And I'm sorry, Naruto, but that's all I can tell you right now. Naruto shot to his feet, frustration boiling over. Why? Why can't you tell me? It's my father, I have a right to know. You do, Hiruzen said, and there was pain in his old eyes. You absolutely do. But there are reasons, political reasons, dangerous reasons, why his identity must remain hidden for now. Revealing it could put you in even greater danger than you already face. I don't care about danger. I care about, Naruto stopped, his voice breaking. I care about knowing who I am. Hiruzen rose from his chair and walked around the desk, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. The touch was warm, grounding. I know, my boy. I know. And I promise you, when the time is right, you will know everything. But for now, you need to trust me. Can you do that? Naruto wanted to scream. Wanted to demand answers, to shake the old man until the truth fell out. But he looked into Hiruzen's eyes and saw not evasion, but protection. The old man wasn't keeping secrets to hurt him. He was keeping them to keep him safe. I guess, Naruto muttered, looking away. There's one more thing, Hiruzen said quietly. What happened tonight, the burning in your eyes, the way the men reacted, I need you to tell me exactly what you saw. What did the world look like, in that moment? Naruto frowned, trying to remember. It was different. Like I could see things before they happened. The man with the kunai, I knew where he was going to swing before he did it. And when I looked at the other two, after my eyes stopped hurting, they were staring at me like he swallowed. Like I was something they'd never seen before. Hiruzen's grip on his shoulder tightened almost imperceptibly. Naruto, I need you to listen to me carefully. What happened tonight, you can't tell anyone about it. Not your friends, not your teachers. No one. But. No one, Hiruzen repeated, and his voice held a command that Naruto had never heard from him before. Your life may depend on it. Do you understand? Naruto didn't understand. Not really. But he nodded anyway, because the look in the Hokage's eyes scared him more than any drunk with a kunai ever could. Good. Hiruzen's hand fell away, and he returned to his desk, suddenly looking every one of his years. Go home, Naruto. Get some rest. And trust me, the truth will come, when it's safe. Naruto left the office with more questions than he'd arrived with and a name burning in his chest like a brand. Kushina. His mother had a name. That was something. It would have to be enough, for now. In the shadows of the Hokage Tower, a figure watched the blonde boy leave. Dark hair, dark eyes, pale skin that seemed to absorb the moonlight rather than reflect it. He stood so still that passing patrols didn't notice him, hidden in plain sight by skill that had been honed since childhood. Itachi Uchiha watched his brother's best friend, his other brother, though Naruto didn't know it, disappear into the night, and his expression didn't change. But behind his dark eyes, thoughts turned like wheels within wheels. It's starting, he thought. The eyes are awakening. Soon everyone will know. He'd been watching Naruto for years, long before the boy had ever noticed him. Watching, waiting, protecting from shadows that the boy didn't know existed. The Hokage had assigned him to this task personally, and Itachi had accepted without question, not because of orders, but because of blood. Mikoto's son. His mother's son. His brother. Itachi turned and melted into the darkness, heading toward the Uchiha district, toward the compound where his family slept unaware of the secrets that walked among them. His mother's room was dark when he passed it, but he paused outside her door anyway, pressing one hand briefly to the wood. He's strong, mother. Stronger than any of us knew. The blood runs true. Inside the room, Mikoto Uchiha lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She didn't know Itachi was there, he was too stilled for that, but she felt something, some shift in the air, some whisper of presence that made her heart ache with a longing she'd carried for 12 years. Her son. Her firstborn, hidden away to protect him from the politics and prejudice that would have consumed him. She'd made the choice, agreed to the plan, let him go because it was the only way to keep him safe. Every day since, she'd regretted it. But she'd watched him too, from a distance, collecting reports and occasionally glimpsing him in the village. The bright hair, the stubborn set of his jaw, the way he never gave up no matter how many times life knocked him down. He had Kushina's spirit, that was certain. And he had her eyes, not her dark eyes, but Kushina's blue, hiding the truth of his blood. For now. Mikoto closed her eyes and let the tears fall silently, as she'd done 1,000 times before. Soon, she told herself. Soon he'll know. Soon I can tell him. She just prayed that when that day came, he would forgive her. The next morning, Naruto woke with a headache that pounded behind his eyes like a drum. He groaned, rolling over and pressing his face into his pillow, trying to escape the light that streamed through his thin curtains. For a few blissful moments, he couldn't remember why his head hurt so much. Then the memories of the night before came flooding back, the men in the alley, the burning in his eyes, the Hokage's warnings and secrets. Great, he muttered into the pillow. Just great. He dragged himself out of bed and threw his morning routine on autopilot, barely tasting the stale rice crackers he forced down for breakfast. His eyes still ached, a dull throb that pulsed with his heartbeat, and when he looked in the mirror, they were the same blue they'd always been. What happened to me? The question followed him out the door and through the streets to the academy, where the morning sun was already heating the training grounds and his classmates were gathering in clusters, laughing and talking and being normal in a way that Naruto had never quite managed. Naruto! The shout came from behind him, and Naruto turned to find Sakura Haruno storming toward him with murder in her green eyes. Behind her, Ino Yamanaka followed at a slight distance, watching with an expression that mixed amusement with something like concern. What did I do now? Naruto asked, genuinely confused. You know what you did. Sakura jabbed a finger at his chest. Yesterday in sparring, you humiliated Kiba. And now he's been moping all morning, and Akamaru won't stop whining, and it's all your fault. Naruto blinked. I won one spar. One. Kiba's beaten me 100 times. That's not the point. Sakura's face was turning an impressive shade of pink. The point is you're not supposed to be able to beat him. You're the dead last. You fail everything, It doesn't make sense. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Naruto muttered, but something in Sakura's words struck a chord. She was right, it didn't make sense. He was the dead last. He failed written tests, struggled with basic jutsu, and generally spent his academy career proving that he was the worst student in their class. So how had he suddenly dodged Kiba like he'd known exactly what was coming? You're weird, Sakura declared, apparently satisfied that she'd made her point. Just stay away from me and Sasuke-kun, okay? We don't need your weirdness rubbing off on us. She flounced off toward the academy building, Ino trailing behind with a shrug and a muttered sorry, she's cranky this morning. Naruto watched them go, then turned to find Sasuke Uchiha standing a few feet away, leaning against a tree with his arms crossed and his dark eyes fixed on Naruto with an intensity that made the back of his neck prickle. What? Naruto asked, defensive. Sasuke didn't answer immediately. He just kept staring, those dark Uchiha eyes unblinking, until Naruto felt like he might crawl out of his own skin. You looked different yesterday, Sasuke finally said. When you fought Kiba. Naruto's heart stuttered. Different how? I don't know. Sasuke pushed off from the tree and walked closer, close enough that Naruto could see his own reflection in those dark eyes. Different. Like you actually knew what you were doing for once. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe. Sasuke's gaze didn't waver. But I don't think so. For a long moment, they stood there, two boys who were supposed to be rivals but who shared a connection neither of them understood. Then Sasuke turned and walked toward the academy without another word, leaving Naruto standing alone in the morning sun with a headache that wouldn't quit and questions that had no answers. The day passed in a blur of lessons that Naruto couldn't focus on and exercises that felt somehow easier than they should have. During shuriken practice, his throws were more accurate than usual, not perfect, but better, and he could almost see the path each shuriken would take before it left his hand. During the history lesson, Iruka-sensei's words seemed to echo strangely, and Naruto found himself noticing details about his classmates that he'd never paid attention to before, the way Choji's hand kept drifting toward his snack pouch, the way Shino's bug shifted under his collar, the way Sasuke's eyes kept flicking toward him when he thought no one was looking. By the time the final bell rang, Naruto's head was pounding so hard he could barely see straight. He gathered his things and headed for the door, desperate for the quiet of his apartment and the darkness of his futon. Naruto. Iruka's voice stopped him at the door. Can I see you for a moment? Naruto hesitated, then turned back. Iruka stood by his desk, arms crossed, expression caught somewhere between concern and confusion. He waited until the last student had filed out before speaking. How are you feeling? The question caught Naruto off guard. Fine. Why? Iruka studied him with the kind of look that suggested he didn't believe a word of it. You've been distracted all day. Your eyes keep watering. And during shuriken practice, your form was completely different than it's been all year. I've been practicing, Naruto said, but the excuse sounded weak even to him. I've been teaching you for 3 years, Iruka said gently. I know what your practice looks like. That wasn't practice. That was something else. He paused, seeming to choose his next words carefully. Naruto, has anything unusual happened lately? Anything with your eyes? The question hit too close to home. Naruto's hand twitched toward his face before he could stop it, and he saw Iruka notice. I thought so. Iruka sighed, running a hand through his brown hair. Look, I'm not going to push. Whatever's going on, it's not my business unless you want it to be. But I want you to know, if something is happening, if you're scared or confused or just need someone to talk to, my door is always open. Okay? Naruto stared at him, caught off guard by the genuine concern in his teacher's voice. Iruka wasn't always easy on him, he graded hard, pushed hard, held Naruto to standards that sometimes felt impossible. But he'd never treated Naruto like the monster the villagers whispered about. He'd never looked at him with fear or hate. I don't know what's happening, Naruto admitted quietly. My eyes hurt. And sometimes I see things. Before they happen. Just for a second. Iruka's expression flickered, surprise, recognition, and something that looked almost like fear before smoothing into careful neutrality. Have you told anyone else about this? The Hokage. Last night. Good. Iruka nodded slowly. Good. Listen to him, Naruto. Whatever he tells you to do, do it. And if you ever need help, if you ever feel like you can't handle what's happening, come to me. I'll do whatever I can. Naruto didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and slipped out the door, leaving Iruka standing alone in the empty classroom with worry etched deep into his scarred face. That night, Naruto dreamed of fire. He stood in the middle of a village street, not his village, but one he recognized somehow, with strange buildings and unfamiliar faces, and all around him, flames rose toward a black sky. People screamed. Children cried. And in the center of it all stood a figure wreathed in shadows, dark hair wild around a pale face, eyes burning red with patterns Naruto had never seen before. The figure turned, and Naruto saw that it was a woman. Beautiful, with features that tugged at something in his memory, and eyes that bled red like fresh wounds. "My son," she whispered, though her lips didn't move. "My beautiful son. Forgive me." Naruto tried to speak, tried to ask who she was, what she meant, but the fire surged higher, swallowing everything, and he woke gasping in his dark apartment with tears streaming down his face and his eyes burning like coals. He stumbled to the bathroom and flicked on the light, staring at his reflection in the mirror above the sink. Blue eyes stared back, wide with fear and confusion. But as he watched, something shifted. The blue deepened, darkened, bled into something else. Red. His eyes were red. Naruto screamed. In the Uchiha district, Mikoto jerked awake with her heart pounding and her hand pressed to her chest. Beside her, Fugaka stirred but didn't wake, and she forced herself to breathe slowly, evenly, until the panic passed. He's awakening, she thought. So soon. So young. She closed her eyes and reached out with senses she hadn't used in years, searching for the thread of connection that bound her to her hidden son. It was faint, barely there, but it pulsed with something new, something sharp and bright and terrifying. The Sharingan. Her son's Sharingan, awakening in darkness and fear and confusion, with no one there to guide him through it. Mikoto pressed her fist to her mouth and wept. The next morning, Naruto woke to find his eyes had returned to their normal blue. For a long moment, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to convince himself that the night before had been a dream. It hadn't been. He knew it hadn't. He dragged himself through the motions of getting ready, avoiding his own reflection, and made it to the academy just as the bell rang. Irika gave him a concerned look but didn't say anything, and Naruto slumped into his seat at the back of the room, grateful for the anonymity of being the dead last that no one wanted to sit near. The morning passed in a haze. Naruto took notes mechanically, not really absorbing anything, and when lunch came he grabbed his bento and headed for the roof, his usual spot, where he could eat alone without having to watch his classmates laugh together and pretend he didn't exist. He was halfway through his rice balls when footsteps announced someone's approach. Naruto looked up, ready to snarl at whoever had come to bother him, and found Sasuke Uchiha standing at the top of the stairs, dark eyes fixed on him with that same intense stare from yesterday. "What do you want?" Naruto asked, not bothering to hide his hostility. Sasuke didn't answer immediately. He walked closer, close enough that Naruto could see the details of his face, the pale skin, the sharp cheekbones, the eyes that were so dark they looked black. Uchiha eyes. Clan eyes. Eyes that had secrets Naruto couldn't guess. "There's something different about you," Sasuke said quietly. "I've been watching you for years, and you've never been anything special. Dead last. Class clown. Always loud, always annoying, never a threat." He paused. "But yesterday, when you fought Kiba, you weren't any of those things. You were something else." Naruto's heart hammered. Maybe I just had a good day. Maybe. Sasuke's gaze didn't waver. But I don't think so. And I think you know that too. For a long moment, they stared at each other, two boys who should have been strangers, connected by blood neither of them understood. Then Sasuke turned and walked away, leaving Naruto alone with his rice balls and his fear and the burning behind his eyes that wouldn't quite go away. The days following that first awakening passed in a strange, suspended haze. Naruto moved through his routine like a ghost, attending classes, eating alone, avoiding the stares that followed him everywhere, but his mind remained fixed on the image in the mirror. Red eyes. His eyes, but not his. Something ancient and terrifying looking out from a face he'd thought he knew. He hadn't told anyone about what he'd seen. Not Irika, not the Hokage, not even himself in the quiet moments before sleep when he tried to convince himself it hadn't happened. But the truth sat in his chest like a stone, heavy and immovable, growing heavier with each passing day. 3 weeks after the incident, something broke. It happened during a simple exercise, tree climbing, of all things, a basic chakra control practice that first-year students could usually manage. Irika had taken them to the training grounds behind the academy, where a grove of tall oaks provided plenty of targets for the morning's lesson. "Remember," Irika called out, walking among the students as they attempted to scale the trunks, "it's about focusing your chakra to the soles of your feet. Too little, and you'll slip. Too much, and you'll push yourself off. Find the balance." Naruto had tried tree climbing before, with the usual results. His chakra control had always been terrible, too much power, not enough finesse, like trying to paint with a fire hose. He'd made it maybe 3 steps up any given tree before his chakra flared and sent him tumbling back to earth. But today felt different. He approached his assigned oak, placed his foot against the bark, and felt something shift inside him. The chakra that always seemed to rage just beneath his skin suddenly quieted, focusing itself with an ease that felt entirely foreign. He took a step up. Then another. Then another. By the time he realized what was happening, he was 10 feet off the ground and still climbing. "Naruto." Irika's voice cut through his concentration, and Naruto looked down to find his teacher staring up at him with an expression that mixed shock with something else. "How?" The distraction cost him. His focus slipped, chakra flared, and suddenly he was falling, branches whipping past as he tumbled toward the ground. He landed hard on his back, the breath knocked from his lungs, and lay there staring at the blue sky through the canopy of leaves. When he finally sat up, rubbing his sore head, he found his classmates gathered in a loose circle, staring at him like he'd grown a second head. "How did you do that?" Sakura demanded. "Your chakra control is the worst in the class." "Maybe I'm not as bad as you think," Naruto muttered, but the words felt hollow even to him. He didn't understand what had just happened any more than they did. Irika pushed through the crowd and knelt beside him, his voice low. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." Naruto climbed to his feet, brushing leaves from his orange jumpsuit. Can we go back to the lesson?" Irika studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Class, pair up and continue practicing. Naruto, walk with me." They moved away from the others, finding a quiet spot near the edge of the training ground where the trees thinned and the village rooftops became visible in the distance. Irika leaned against a trunk, arms crossed, his scarred face troubled. "That wasn't normal," he said quietly. "Even for someone who's been practicing, that level of improvement doesn't happen overnight. Something's changing in you, Naruto. Something I don't fully understand." Naruto kicked at a loose stone. "I don't understand it either." "The Hokage." "I know what he said. Don't tell anyone. Keep it secret." Naruto's voice came out sharper than he intended. "But how am I supposed to keep it secret when I don't even know what it is?" Irika was quiet for a moment. Then he said, very carefully, "There are things in this village that most people don't know about. Bloodlines, abilities passed down through families. Some clans have them, the Hyuga with their Byakugan, the Akimichi with their expansion techniques, the Yamanaka with their mind transfer." He paused. "The Uchiha have the Sharingan." Naruto's heart stuttered. "The Sharingan? Those red eyes that Sasuke's brother has?" "Yes." Irika's gaze was steady. "The Sharingan is a Kekkai Genkai, a bloodline limit. It awakens in response to strong emotion, usually trauma or loss. Those who possess it can see chakra, predict movements, copy techniques." He paused again, weighing his next words. "Naruto, what you described, seeing the paths of attacks before they happen, the way the world seemed to slow down, that sounds very much like the early stages of Sharingan awakening." The world seemed to tilt around Naruto. "But I'm not Uchiha. I'm nobody. I'm just." "You're not nobody," Irika said firmly. "You never have been. And whatever blood runs in your veins, it doesn't change who you are. But it might explain some things. Like why everyone hates me." The words came out bitter, old wounds bleeding fresh. Irika's expression softened. "That hatred has nothing to do with your blood and everything to do with the fear of people who don't understand what you carry. The 9 tails. I know about the fox." Naruto's voice was flat. "Everyone makes sure I know." "The fox is part of it," Irika acknowledged. "But I'm starting to think it's not the whole story." He pushed off from the tree and put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "Whatever's happening, whatever you are, you're still my student. Still the same loud, annoying, surprisingly determined kid who's been driving me crazy for 3 years. That doesn't change." Naruto looked up at him, and for the first time in weeks, the stone in his chest felt a little lighter. That night, Naruto couldn't sleep. He lay on his futon, staring at the ceiling, Irika's words playing on repeat in his mind. Sharingan. Uchiha. Bloodline. It didn't make sense. The Uchiha were one of the founding clans of Konoha, proud and powerful and insular. They didn't mix with outsiders. They certainly didn't have children with random civilians and then abandon those children to live alone in rundown apartments. If Naruto had Uchiha blood, there had to be an explanation, but every explanation he could think of led to more questions. Around midnight, he gave up on sleep and slipped out of his apartment. The village was quiet, the streets empty except for the occasional patrol, and Naruto moved through the shadows with a skill he hadn't known he possessed. His feet found the quietest paths, his body seemed to know where to step to avoid creaking boards and loose gravel, and by the time he reached the outskirts of the Uchiha district, he was moving as silently as any trained shinobi. He didn't know why he'd come here. Some pull he couldn't name had drawn him toward the clan compound, toward the heart of the mystery that was consuming his thoughts. He found a spot on a low rooftop overlooking the district and sat down, watching the darkened houses and wondering which one held Sasuke, which one held the answers he craved. You shouldn't be here. The voice came from behind him, soft and calm, and Naruto whirled around to find a figure standing on the rooftop edge. Tall, dark-haired, with features that seemed carved from moonlight, Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke's older brother, the prodigy who joined ANBU at an age when most kids were still learning basic kunai throws. Naruto's heart hammered. I was just walking in your sleep? Itachi's voice held no anger, no threat. Just a quiet curiosity that somehow felt more dangerous than any weapon. The Uchiha district is restricted after dark. You know that. I wasn't trying to. Naruto stopped, took a breath. I just needed to think. Somewhere quiet. Itachi regarded him with dark eyes that seemed to see far more than they should. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Itachi did something unexpected. He sat down on the rooftop, crossing his legs with an ease that suggested he planned to stay a while. Thinking is good, he said quietly. Most people don't do enough of it. They react, they fight, they die. But thinking, that's what separates shinobi from weapons. Naruto stared at him, unsure what to make of this strange older boy who was supposed to be a legend, a prodigy, someone far above the dead last of the academy. You're not going to turn me in? For what? Sitting on a rooftop? Itachi's lips curved slightly. No. Though I am curious what brought you here. The Uchiha district isn't exactly a popular destination for non-clan members. Naruto hesitated. Every instinct told him to lie, to make up some excuse and get out of here before this could become a problem. But something in Itachi's quiet presence made him want to tell the truth, or at least part of it. I've been having weird dreams, he said finally. About fire. About a woman with red eyes. And I thought, I don't know what I thought. That coming here might help me understand. If Itachi was surprised by this, he didn't show it. His expression remained calm, almost meditative. Dreams can be powerful things. They can show us truths we're not ready to face while awake. Or they can be just dreams, scraps of memory and imagination tangled together. This didn't feel like just a dream. No. Itachi's dark eyes met his. I don't suppose it did. They sat in silence for a while, the night sounds of the village drifting up around them. Naruto found himself strangely comforted by Itachi's presence, not warm, exactly, but steady. Like a rock in a river that showed no sign of being moved. The woman in your dream, Itachi said eventually. What did she look like? Naruto closed his eyes, calling up the image. Beautiful. Dark hair, long. Pale skin. Red eyes with patterns in them. Like commas spinning around the pupil. He opened his eyes. She called me her son. Something flickered in Itachi's expression, too fast for Naruto to read, but definitely there. The Mangekyo Sharingan, he murmured, almost to himself. That pattern you described, it's a rare evolution of the Sharingan. Only a few Uchiha have ever awakened it. Then she was Uchiha? Itachi didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked, what else do you remember about her? The fire, Naruto said. There was so much fire. And she looked sad, heartbroken, like she was losing something she couldn't bear to lose. She kept saying forgive me over and over. This time, Itachi's composure cracked, just slightly, a tightening around his eyes that spoke of old pain carefully hidden. When he spoke, his voice was even softer than before. Dreams can show us many things. But sometimes they show us what we need to see, rather than what actually was. He stood, graceful as a cat. You should go home now. It's late, and the patrols will be making their rounds soon. Naruto rose too, reluctant to leave but recognizing a dismissal when he heard one. Will I see you again? Itachi looked at him for a long moment, really looked, in a way that made Naruto feel like every secret he carried was written on his skin. I think you will. When the time is right. He turned to go, then paused. Naruto. Be careful who you trust. The truth has a way of getting people killed. And then he was gone, vanished into the night like smoke, leaving Naruto alone on the rooftop with more questions than he'd arrived with. The next day at the academy, Sasuke was waiting for him. Naruto spotted him the moment he walked through the gate, dark hair, dark eyes, leaning against the same tree as before with an expression that suggested he'd been there for a while. Their eyes met, and Sasuke pushed off from the trunk and walked toward him with the kind of purpose that made Naruto's stomach clench. We need to talk, Sasuke said quietly. About what? About my brother. Naruto's heart skipped. I don't know what you're talking about. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Don't lie to me. You were seen near the compound last night. And this morning, Itachi was different. Distracted. He kept looking toward the village like he was waiting for something. He stepped closer, close enough that Naruto could see the intensity burning in those dark Uchiha eyes. What did he say to you? Nothing. Naruto backed up a step. We just talked. About dreams, about I don't know, nothing important. Dreams? Sasuke's expression shifted, surprise, curiosity, and something that looked almost like recognition. What kind of dreams? Naruto hesitated, but something in Sasuke's face made him answer honestly. Dreams about fire. About a woman with red eyes who called me her son. The blood drained from Sasuke's face. For a moment, he looked almost ill, pale and shaken in a way Naruto had never seen from the always cool Uchiha prodigy. Then his expression hardened into something unreadable. Stay away from my family, he said flatly. Stay away from my brother. Whatever games you're playing, whatever lies you're telling yourself, they have nothing to do with the Uchiha. Sasuke. I mean it. Sasuke's voice was ice. You're nobody. You're the dead last, the demon container, the orphan with no name and no family. You don't get to dream about Uchiha women or talk to my brother in the middle of the night. You don't get to be part of anything that matters. The words hit like physical blows, each one finding a bruise Naruto had carried since childhood. He felt his eyes burned not with tears, but with that strange heat he'd come to dread and looked away before Sasuke could see. Fine, he muttered. Whatever you say. Sasuke stared at him for another long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. Naruto watched him go, and behind his eyes, something stirred. 3 days later, the dreams changed. Naruto stood in the same burning village, surrounded by the same screaming crowds, but this time the woman with the red eyes wasn't alone. Beside her stood a man tall, broad-shouldered, with red hair that seemed to glow in the firelight and eyes that held the weight of worlds. He held a newborn baby in his arms, wrapped in white cloth, and his expression was the most heartbreaking thing Naruto had ever seen. We have to do this, the woman said. It's the only way to keep him safe. I know. The man's voice was deep, rough with grief. But it doesn't make it easier. He'll never know us. He'll never know who he could have been. He'll know love. The man looked down at the baby, and tears carved paths through the soot on his cheeks. The third will make sure of that. And someday, when the danger has passed, he'll learn the truth. The woman reached out, touching the baby's face with trembling fingers. My son. My beautiful son. Forgive me. Forgive us both. The fire surged higher, swallowing everything, and Naruto woke with a scream caught in his throat and his eyes burning like they'd never stop. He stumbled to the bathroom, flicked on the light, and stared at his reflection. Red eyes stared back. The same red as the woman's. The same pattern forming in the iris, commas spinning around the pupil, not fully formed but there, unmistakable. The Sharingan. Naruto had Sasuke's eyes. He didn't go to the academy that day. Couldn't face anyone, couldn't pretend that everything was normal when his very DNA was screaming secrets at him. He stayed in his apartment, curtains drawn, avoiding his own reflection, trying to make sense of a world that had suddenly become unrecognizable. Around noon, someone knocked on his door. Naruto ignored it. The knock came again, more insistent. Go away, Naruto called out. I'm sick. Naruto, it's me. Irika's voice, muffled through the thin wood. Open the door. Naruto hesitated, then shuffled over and pulled it open a crack. Irika stood in the hallway, holding a bag of takeout from Ichiraku's, his scarred face creased with concern. You missed class, he said. You've never missed class. Not even when you had a fever of 102 and could barely stand. He pushed the door open gently and stepped inside, taking in the drawn curtains and Naruto's haggard appearance. What's going on? Naruto wanted to lie. Wanted to make up something, anything, to avoid the conversation he knew was coming. But he was so tired of secrets, so tired of carrying this alone, and Irika had always been kind to him, as kind as anyone in this village ever was. I need to show you something, he whispered. But you can't tell anyone. You have to promise. Irika's expression grew serious. I promise. Naruto took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and thought about the dream. About the woman with red eyes, the man with red hair, the baby who was him. About the fire and the grief and the words that still echoed in his memory. Forgive me. When he opened his eyes, Irika was staring at him with an expression that mixed horror, wonder, and dawning understanding. Sage of Six Paths, Irika breathed. Naruto, your eyes. I know. Naruto's voice cracked. I'm not supposed to have these. I'm not Uchiha. But I do. And I don't understand why, and I don't understand what's happening to me, and I'm scared, Irika-sensei. I'm really, really scared. Irika set down the food and crossed the room in 2 quick strides, pulling Naruto into a hug that shocked them both. Naruto couldn't remember the last time someone had held him like this, warm and protective, like he mattered, like he was worth protecting. You're not alone, Irika said fiercely. Do you hear me? You are not alone. Whatever this is, whatever it means, we'll figure it out together. Naruto clung to him and cried. That evening, Irika took Naruto to the Hokage's office. Hiruzen listened in silence as Naruto told him everything, the dreams, the burning eyes, the mirror, the pattern that had formed and then faded. When Naruto finished, the old Hokage sat motionless for a long moment, his pipe forgotten in his hand. I had hoped we would have more time, he said finally. More time for you to grow, to become strong, to build a foundation before the truth came out. He sighed heavily. But the blood will not be denied. It seems your heritage is awakening whether we're ready or not. My heritage? Naruto's voice shook. What heritage? Who were those people in my dreams? Hiruzen exchanged a glance with Irika, then nodded slowly. You deserve the truth, Naruto. All of it. And given what's happening to you, keeping it secret any longer would be more dangerous than revealing it. He rose from his desk and walked to the window, looking out at the village spread below them. The woman in your dreams, the one with the Mangekyo Sharingan, was named Mikoto Uchiha. She was the wife of Fugaku Uchiha, the head of the Uchiha clan, and the mother of 2 sons. He paused. One of those sons is Sasuke. The other is Itachi. Naruto's brain struggled to process this. But then who was the man? The one with red hair? Hiruzen turned back to face him, and his eyes held a grief that had been decades in the making. His name was Minato Namikaze. He was the 4th Hokage. And he was your father. The words hit Naruto like a physical blow. He staggered, grabbing the edge of the desk for support, while Irika moved to steady him with a hand on his shoulder. The 4th Hokage, Naruto repeated numbly. My father was the 4th Hokage. Yes. Hiruzen's voice was gentle but firm. And your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, a woman of remarkable strength and spirit, from a clan known for their powerful chakra and longevity. She was engaged to Minato, and they loved each other deeply. But the dreams, the Uchiha woman. Hiruzen held up a hand. I'm getting to that. You see, Naruto, there's something about your birth that very few people know. Something that was hidden to protect you, and to protect the village. He returned to his desk and sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his years. Kushina and Minato loved each other, and they loved you. But Kushina was not the only woman who loved Minato, and Minato was not the only man who loved Kushina. There was another, a complicated situation that grew out of the chaos of wartime and the bonds formed between people who never expected to survive. Naruto's heart hammered. What are you saying? The Uchiha woman in your dreams, Mikoto, she and Minato had a connection before he met Kushina. A brief relationship, during the war, when they were both young and the future seemed uncertain. It ended when the war did, and Minato chose Kushina. But Mikoto never forgot him, and when she learned that Kushina was pregnant with you, Hiruzen paused, choosing his words carefully. She offered to help. To watch over Kushina during the pregnancy, to be there for the birth. And in the chaos of that night, when the Ninetales attacked and Kushina was dying, she made a choice. Naruto couldn't breathe. What choice? She used a forbidden technique, Hiruzen said quietly. One that had been passed down in the Uchiha clan for generations. A technique that allows the transfer of a portion of one's chakra and one's bloodline to another. She gave you her Sharingan, Naruto. She gave you Uchiha blood to mix with the Uzumaki blood you already carried, so that you would have the strength to survive what was coming. The room spun. Naruto gripped the desk harder, feeling like he might fall off the edge of the world. So Mikoto, she's your mother, Hiruzen confirmed. In a way. Not your birth mother, that was always Kushina. But she gave you part of herself, knowing it would cost her. Knowing she would never be able to acknowledge you, never be able to hold you, never be able to tell you the truth. She did it to save your life. Naruto thought of the woman in his dreams, her red eyes, her heartbroken expression, the way she'd said my son like it was a prayer and a wound all at once. She'd been real. She'd been there. And she'd given him something precious, something that was waking up inside him and changing everything. Sasuke doesn't know, he whispered. He called me nobody. He said I don't get to be part of anything that matters. Sasuke doesn't know, Hiruzen agreed. No one does, except myself, a few trusted advisors, and now you and Irika. The truth has been kept hidden for 12 years to protect you from those who would use you, and to protect the Uchiha from the political fallout of such a revelation. The Uchiha. Naruto's eyes widened. Mikoto, she's still alive, isn't she? She's here, in the village, and his voice broke. She never told me. She never even looked at me. She looked, Irika said softly. From a distance. I've seen her sometimes, in the market, watching you when she thought no one was looking. She always looked away before you could notice. Naruto's eyes burned, and this time he didn't try to stop the tears. They fell freely, carving paths down his cheeks as 12 years of loneliness and longing and desperate hope collided inside him. I have a mother, he said. I have 2 mothers. And one of them is alive, and she's been watching me my whole life, and she never, he choked on the words. Why didn't she ever talk to me? Why didn't she ever? Because she couldn't, Hiruzen said gently. Because the moment she did, questions would be asked. Suspicion would fall. The carefully constructed story of your origins would crumble, and the truth, the dangerous, complicated truth, would come out before you were ready to face it. She stayed away to protect you, Naruto. Just as your father and Kushina gave their lives to protect you. Just as Mikoto gave you her bloodline to protect you. Naruto wanted to be angry. Wanted to scream in rage and demand to know why his life had to be so complicated, why the people who loved him kept making choices that left him alone and hurting. But looking at the Hokage's tired, sad face, he couldn't find the anger. All he found was exhaustion, and grief, and a desperate, aching need to understand. "What do I do now?" he asked quietly. Hiruzen leaned forward, his old eyes sharp and focused. "Now, you train. You learn to control what's awakening inside you. You become strong enough that when the truth does come out, and it will, eventually you'll be able to face whatever comes next." He paused. "And you keep the secret a little longer. For your safety, and for Mikoto's." "And Sasuke?" Hiruzen was quiet for a long moment. "Sasuke will learn the truth when the time is right. But for now, he can't know. His loyalty to his clan, to his father, it could complicate things in ways none of us can predict." Naruto nodded slowly. It wasn't what he wanted to hear, but it was what he needed to hear. He had a path now, a purpose beyond just surviving until graduation. He had something to fight for, something to become. He had a family. That night, Naruto stood on the edge of the Uchiha district and looked toward the compound where Mikoto Uchiha slept. He didn't try to enter, didn't know if he could, after what Itachi had said about patrols and restrictions. But he stood there for a long time, sending a silent message across the distance between them. "I know," he thought. "I know who you are. I know what you did. I don't understand it all yet, but I know. And someday soon, I'm going to find you. I'm going to look into your eyes and see my own looking back. And then we'll figure out the rest together." A figure moved in the shadows near the compound wall, dark hair, pale skin, eyes that caught the moonlight. Itachi Uchiha, watching him with an expression that held no surprise. For a long moment, they looked at each other across the empty street. Then Itachi nodded, just once, barely visible, and vanished into the darkness. Naruto nodded back, turned, and walked home with the first real hope he'd felt in weeks burning in his chest. The training ground was empty when Naruto arrived before dawn, the sky still painted in shades of deep purple and the first hints of gold along the horizon. He'd barely slept, hadn't been able to, not with everything the Hokage had told him spinning through his mind like a leaf in a whirlwind. So instead of lying awake staring at the ceiling, he'd pulled on his training clothes and come here, to the place where he'd first begun to suspect that something was different about him. The oak tree from the tree climbing exercise stood at the edge of the clearing, its bark still marked with the scuffs of a dozen students' failed attempts. Naruto approached it slowly, placing his palm against the rough surface, and closed his eyes. "Focus your chakra. Find the balance. Too little and you'll slip, too much and you'll push yourself off." He'd heard those words 100 times, from a dozen teachers, and they'd never meant anything to him before. His chakra had always been too wild, too powerful, too much for the delicate control exercises required. But now, standing here with the truth of his blood burning in his veins, something felt different. He opened his eyes and looked at the tree. And the world shifted. It happened slowly at first, a deepening of colors, a sharpening of edges, a sense that he could see into the tree somehow, past its bark to the slow pulse of life within. Then faster, the world around him gaining depth and dimension he'd never noticed, the morning breeze becoming visible as trails of disturbed air, the chakra in his own body glowing like a second sun. Naruto gasped and stumbled back, and the vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving him trembling and breathless. What was that? He spun around, heart hammering, and found Kakashi Hatake leaning against a tree at the edge of the clearing, one eye curved in that lazy smile he always wore, the other hidden behind his forehead protector and the mask that covered most of his face. "Sorry," Kakashi said, not sounding sorry at all. "Didn't mean to startle you. Though I have to say, watching you practice at this hour is more interesting than I expected." Naruto's pulse slowly returned to normal. "What are you doing here?" "Morning walk." Kakashi pushed off from the tree and ambled closer, his hands shoved in his pockets. "Saw a kid who looked like he needed a teacher. Figured I'd offer my services." "I don't need," Naruto stopped. Actually, he did need a teacher. He needed someone who could explain what was happening to him, who could help him understand the power awakening in his blood. And Kakashi Elite Jounin, former ANBU, the famous copy ninja who'd supposedly mastered 1,000 techniques, was probably the best teacher he could hope for. "Why would you want to help me?" he asked suspiciously. "Everyone else in this village wants me as far away as possible." Kakashi's visible eye softened almost imperceptibly. "Not everyone. And let's just say I have my reasons." He moved closer, tilting his head as he studied Naruto with an intensity that made the boy feel like he was being x-rayed. "You just activated your Sharingan for the first time, didn't you? Really activated it, I mean, not just the emotional flash, but the conscious use." Naruto's blood ran cold. "How do you know about that?" "Because I've seen it before." Kakashi tapped the forehead protector covering his left eye. "I've got one of my own. Well, a gift from a friend, technically. But I know what it looks like when someone first awakens to the possibilities of those eyes." Naruto stared at him, mind racing. Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, had a Sharingan? That didn't make sense, Kakashi wasn't Uchiha. Everyone knew that. It's a long story, Kakashi said, reading his expression. One I might tell you someday, if you earn it. But for now, here's what matters, I know what you're going through. I know how terrifying it is when your own body starts doing things you don't understand. And I know how to help you control it. Why? The question hung between them, simple and complicated all at once. Kakashi looked at him for a long moment, and something in his visible eye shifted, became older, sadder, weighted with memories Naruto couldn't guess. Because someone did it for me, he said quietly. Because I promised myself I'd pay it forward. And because you're going to need all the help you can get, Naruto. The road ahead of you is harder than you can imagine, and you're going to need people in your corner. Naruto thought about Irika, about the Hokage, about the mother who watched him from a distance and the brother who didn't know they were connected. About Itachi, appearing in the night like a guardian spirit, and now Kakashi, offering to teach him for reasons he couldn't quite explain. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he'd always thought. Okay, he said. Teach me. Kakashi's eye crinkled in what might have been a smile. Good answer. Meet me here every morning before dawn. And Naruto, he paused, turning serious. What we do here, what you're learning, it stays between us. The Sharingan is a dangerous secret, and there are people who would use you if they knew. Understood? Naruto nodded, feeling the weight of yet another secret settling onto his shoulders. But this one felt different. This one felt like power. The first week of training was brutal. Kakashi pushed him harder than anyone ever had, driving him through exercises that left him collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath, every muscle screaming in protest. But between the physical conditioning, Kakashi taught him about the Sharingan, how it worked, what it could do, the dangers of relying on it too heavily. The Sharingan sees chakra, Kakashi explained during one of their rare breaks, sitting on a tree stump while Naruto lay sprawled on the grass. It perceives the flow, the patterns, the weaknesses. With training, you can learn to read an opponent's movements before they make them, to copy techniques you've only seen once, to see through genjutsu and into the truth of things. But you said there are dangers. Kakashi nodded. The Sharingan consumes chakra constantly when active. Leave it on too long, and you'll drain yourself to exhaustion or worse. It also has a way of changing how you see the world. Making you rely on it instead of your other senses. Some Uchiha have lost themselves in their own eyes, chasing greater and greater power until they forgot what they were fighting for. Naruto thought about that, about the woman in his dreams with her Mangekyo Sharingan and her heartbreaking expression. Had she lost something chasing power? Or had she given something up to gain it? How do I know if I'm using it right? Kakashi's visible eye softened. You pay attention. You stay grounded in who you are, what you believe, the people you care about. The Sharingan is a tool, a powerful one, but still just a tool. It doesn't define you. You define it. That made sense, in a way that few things had since Naruto's world had turned upside down. He was still Naruto, still loud, still stubborn, still determined to prove himself. The Sharingan was just another part of him now, like his bright hair or his whisker marks. Something to master, not something to be mastered by. Okay, he said, pushing himself up. Let's go again. Kakashi's eye crinkled. That's the spirit. 3 weeks into training, Naruto made a breakthrough. They were working on chakra control, the same exercises he'd always struggled with, but now with the Sharingan active, allowing him to see the flow of his own chakra in ways he never could before. He could watch it build, could see where it was too strong or too weak, could adjust with a precision that had always been impossible. I'm doing it, he breathed, watching the chakra pool steadily in his hand, forming a perfect sphere of blue light. I'm actually doing it. Kakashi nodded, a rare note of approval in his voice. The Sharingan gives you feedback your other senses can't. Use it to learn the feeling of correct control, and eventually you'll be able to replicate it without the eyes. That's the goal, to make the improvement permanent, not dependent on the bloodline. Naruto let the chakra fade and deactivated his Sharingan, feeling the familiar ache behind his eyes. 3 weeks ago, 30 seconds of active use had left him dizzy and nauseated. Now he could maintain it for nearly 5 minutes before the strain became too much. Progress. Same time tomorrow, he asked, climbing to his feet. Kakashi checked the sky, the sun was fully up now, painting the training ground in gold. You have the academy today. Rest your eyes, practice the control exercises I showed you, and meet me here at dawn. Naruto nodded and jogged off toward the village, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. The training was hard, harder than anything he'd ever done, but it gave him focus. Purpose. A way to channel the fear and confusion into something productive. He was so focused on his own thoughts that he almost didn't notice the figure waiting for him at the edge of the training ground. Almost. Sasuke stood with his back against a tree, arms crossed, expression carefully blank. But his dark eyes tracked Naruto's approach with an intensity that made the back of Naruto's neck prickle. You've been coming here every morning, Sasuke said quietly. Before dawn. I've seen you. Naruto's heart hammered, but he kept his voice steady. So? I like to train early. Alone? Sasuke pushed off from the tree and walked closer. The dead last, suddenly motivated enough to wake up before sunrise and train by himself for weeks? Forgive me if I don't believe it. I don't care what you believe. Naruto started to walk past him, but Sasuke's hand shot out and grabbed his arm. I saw him, Sasuke said, and there was something in his voice that Naruto had never heard before. Uncertainty, maybe. Doubt. Kakashi Hatake. Leaving the training ground yesterday morning. What were you doing with him? Naruto yanked his arm free. None of your business. It is my business if it involves Uchiha blood. Sasuke's eyes flashed. I know you were talking to my brother. I know something's going on with you. And I want to know what it is. For a wild moment, Naruto considered telling him. Just blurting out the truth. I'm your brother, your mother gave me her Sharingan, we're connected in ways you can't imagine. But he remembered the Hokage's warning, Kakashi's caution, the weight of secrets that could get people killed. You want to know what's going on? Naruto said, and his voice came out harder than he intended. Fine. I'm training. I'm getting stronger. I'm tired of being the dead last, tired of everyone looking at me like I'm nothing, tired of you thinking you're better than me just because of your precious clan name. That's what's going on. Sasuke stared at him, something flickering in those dark eyes, surprise, maybe, or recognition of a feeling he understood all too well. The clan name doesn't make me better, he said quietly. It makes me a target. It makes everyone expect things from me that I'm not sure I can deliver. It makes my brother look at me like I'm a disappointment. The words hung between them, raw and unexpected. Naruto had never heard Sasuke talk like this, never heard him admit to any weakness, any doubt. The perfect Uchiha prodigy, showing cracks in his armor. Sasuke, Naruto started, but Sasuke cut him off. Forget it. He turned away, shoulders tight. Do whatever you want. Train with whoever you want. It doesn't matter to me. He walked away without looking back, and Naruto watched him go with a complicated tangle of emotions twisting in his chest. Rivalry. Sympathy. And beneath it all, a thread of something that felt almost like brotherhood. That night, Naruto dreamed of Mikoto again. She sat in a garden, surrounded by flowers that bloomed in impossible colors, her dark hair loose around her shoulders and her red eyes fixed on something in the distance. When Naruto approached, she turned to look at him, and her expression held a warmth that made his heart ache. You've been training, she said. I can see it in your chakra. You're getting stronger. How do you know? Naruto asked. How can you see me? The connection, she said simply. The piece of myself I gave you, it binds us across any distance. I've always been able to feel you, even when I couldn't be near. And now that your eyes are awakening, the connection grows stronger. Naruto thought about all the nights he'd felt watched, all the moments when he'd sensed someone in the shadows. You've been watching me. All this time. Always. Tears glistened in her red eyes. Every birthday, every lonely night, every time you fell and got back up again. I was there, Naruto. I was always there. Then why? His voice broke. Why couldn't you just talk to me? Why did I have to grow up alone, thinking I didn't have anyone? Because I was afraid. Mikoto's voice trembled. Afraid of what would happen if the truth came out. Afraid of the danger it would put you in. Afraid that if I let myself love you openly, I wouldn't be able to let you go. She reached out, and though her hand passed through him like mist, Naruto felt the warmth of her touch anyway. I was a coward. I chose safety over love, and I've regretted it every day since. Naruto wanted to be angry. Wanted to scream at her, demand to know how she could abandon him, leave him to face the village's cruelty alone. But looking at her, at the grief etched into every line of her beautiful face, he couldn't find the anger. I don't forgive you, he said quietly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I understand. Mikoto nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. That's more than I deserve. The garden began to fade, the edges of the dream blurring into darkness. But before it slipped away entirely, Mikoto spoke one last time. Be careful, my son. There are those who would use you, who would use all of us, for their own purposes. The Uchiha are not safe, and neither are you. Trust your instincts, trust the people who have earned your trust, and never stop fighting for what matters. Naruto woke with the words echoing in his mind and a sense of foreboding settling into his bones. The next morning, Kakashi was waiting for him with an expression that meant business. We need to change our approach, he said without preamble. The basic control exercises have done their job, but if you're going to survive what's coming, you need combat training. Real combat training, with the Sharingan active. Naruto's pulse quickened. You mean fighting? I mean learning to integrate the Sharingan into your combat style. Reading opponents, predicting movements, countering techniques. Kakashi's visible eye was serious. The Sharingan is a combat tool above all else. If you can't use it in a fight, it's useless. They spent the morning working through basic sparring drills, with Kakashi moving slowly at first, letting Naruto practice reading his movements before they actually happened. It was frustrating. Naruto could see what was coming, but his body couldn't always react fast enough to do anything about it. Speed will come with practice, Kakashi assured him. Right now, focus on recognition. Know what's coming, even if you can't stop it yet. The awareness is the foundation. By midday, Naruto was exhausted but exhilarated. He'd managed to dodge 3 of Kakashi's attacks in a row, not through luck, but because he'd seen them coming and moved before they landed. It was the first time he'd ever felt like he might actually become something more than the dead last. You're making progress, Kakashi said, a rare note of approval in his voice. Faster than I expected, honestly. The Uzumaki stamina helps, but it's more than that. You've got good instincts. Naruto beamed, then caught himself. Wait, Uzumaki stamina? What's that? Kakashi's eye widened slightly, as if he'd said something he hadn't intended. The Uzumaki clan. Your mother's clan. They were known for their incredible life force and chakra reserves. It's why you can keep going long after most people would have collapsed. My mother's clan. Naruto tested the words. The Uzumaki. I knew my name was Uzumaki, but I didn't know he stopped. What happened to them? Kakashi was quiet for a moment. The Uzumaki clan was destroyed years ago. Their village, Uzushio, fell during the last Great War. Only a few scattered members survived, your mother among them. He paused. They were Konoha's closest allies. Their symbol is on our uniforms, did you know that? The red swirl, that's the Uzumaki crest. Naruto looked down at the red swirl on the back of his jacket, suddenly seeing it with new eyes. His mother's clan. His heritage. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Tell me more about her, he said quietly. About Kushina. Kakashi's expression softened, just slightly. I didn't know her well, I was young when she died. But I remember seeing her around the village. She had hair the same color as yours, bright red like fire. And she had a temper to match. Rumor was, she could knock grown men unconscious with a single punch when she was angry. A ghost of a smile crossed his visible eye. But she was also kind. Fiercely loyal. She loved your father more than anything in the world, and when you were born, she loved you just as much. Naruto felt tears prick at his eyes and blinked them back angrily. She died because of me. Because the Nine Tails attacked when I was born. She died protecting you, Kakashi corrected gently. There's a difference. She chose to give her life so you could live. That's not something to feel guilty about, it's something to honor. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the words settling around them. Then Naruto took a deep breath and stood up. Okay. Let's keep training. Kakashi nodded, approval in his eye. That's the spirit. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Naruto was walking home from the academy when he felt it, a shift in the air, a prickle at the back of his neck, the same feeling he got when someone was watching him. But this was different. This was wrong, somehow, a darkness pressing against the edges of his awareness. He stopped in the middle of the street, scanning the rooftops and alleyways, and saw nothing. But the feeling didn't fade. You're more perceptive than you look. The voice came from behind him, soft and cold, and Naruto spun to find a man standing in the shadow of a building. Tall, with pale skin and dark hair pulled back from a face that held no expression at all. His eyes black, with rings of purple, fixed on Naruto with an intensity that made his blood run cold. Who are you? Naruto demanded, his heart hammering. That's not important. The man stepped closer, and Naruto instinctively stepped back. What's important is what you're becoming. The Sharingan in the demon container, now that's interesting. That's very interesting indeed. Naruto's blood froze. I don't know what you're talking about. No? The man's lips curved in a smile that held no warmth. Then you're either a very good liar or very ignorant of your own nature. And I don't think you're a liar. He moved closer still, close enough that Naruto could see the details of his face, the pale skin, the purple ringed eyes, the faint lines of some marking visible at his collar. The Uchiha blood in you is awakening. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Before Naruto could answer, a figure dropped from the rooftops above, landing between him and the stranger with the fluid grace of a trained killer. Itachi. You need to leave, Itachi said quietly, his voice calm but carrying an edge that Naruto had never heard before. Now. The stranger's smile widened. Itachi Uchiha. I'd heard you were watching over the boy. How touching. He tilted his head, studying Itachi with those strange eyes. Does your family know what you're protecting? Does your father know about his wife's extracurricular activities? Itachi's expression didn't change, but something in the air around him shifted, became sharper, more dangerous. I won't tell you again. Leave. For a long moment, the two faced each other in the gathering dusk. Then the stranger laughed, a soft, chilling sound, and stepped back into the shadows. This isn't over, he said, his voice fading as he vanished. The boy's awakening changes things. We'll be watching. We'll be waiting. And then he was gone, leaving Naruto alone with Itachi in the empty street. What was that? Naruto gasped. Who was that? Itachi turned to face him, and for the first time, Naruto saw genuine concern in those dark eyes. Someone dangerous. Someone who shouldn't know about you. He paused. We need to talk. Now. They met in a safe house on the edge of the village, a small apartment that Itachi used for ANBU business, filled with functional furniture and no personal touches. Naruto sat on the edge of a cot while Itachi stood by the window, watching the street below. That man, Itachi said quietly, was a member of the Akatsuki. A criminal organization that targets powerful shinobi and jinchuriki. They've been watching the village for years, waiting for opportunities. Naruto's mind raced. They want the Nine Tails. They want me. They want the power you carry, yes. But now they know about the other power too. Itachi turned from the window, his expression grave. The Sharingan in a non-Uchiha, especially in the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, is something they'll pursue aggressively. You're more valuable to them than ever. Naruto thought about the man's cold smile, his purple ring eyes, the way he'd spoken about Itachi's family like he knew things he shouldn't. He mentioned your mother. He knows about. He knows enough to be dangerous. Itachi's voice was flat. The Akatsuki has informants everywhere. They've likely been tracking your development for some time, waiting for the right moment to move. The fact that they approached you now suggests they're running out of patience. Naruto's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against his thighs, trying to steady himself. What do I do? Itachi was quiet for a long moment. You keep training. You get stronger. You learn to control your abilities so thoroughly that no one can use them against you. He paused. And you stay close to people you trust. The Akatsuki rarely attack openly, they prefer to manipulate, to divide, to isolate their targets. If you have people watching your back, you're harder to reach. People he trusted. Iraka. Kakashi. The Hokage. Maybe even Sasuke, though that was complicated. And now, apparently, Itachi. Why are you helping me? Naruto asked. You barely know me. I'm just some kid with a connection to your clan. Why risk yourself? Itachi looked at him for a long moment, and something in his expression shifted, it softened, just slightly, into something that might have been pain. Because you're family, he said quietly. Because my mother loves you, even if she can't show it. Because you're my brother, Naruto, and Uchiha protect their own. The words hit Naruto like a physical blow. He stared at Itachi, seeing for the first time the resemblance, the dark hair, the pale skin, the shape of the face that echoed both Sasuke and the woman in his dreams. You knew, he whispered. All this time, you knew. Since you were born. Itachi's voice was gentle. I was 6 years old when my mother came home from that night, changed in ways I couldn't understand. She told me the truth years later, when I was old enough to keep the secret. I've been watching over you ever since. Naruto thought about all the times he'd felt watched, all the moments when shadows seemed to move with purpose. Itachi had been there. His brother had been there, guarding him from dangers he couldn't see. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't my secret to tell. Itachi moved closer, settling onto a stool across from Naruto. My mother had to be the one to tell you, when the time was right. I couldn't take that from her, couldn't rob her of the chance to explain herself, to ask for your forgiveness. He paused. But now, with the Akatsuki involved, the time for waiting may be running out. Naruto's mind churned with everything he'd learned, the truth about his birth, the awakening Sharingan, the criminal organization that wanted him, the brother who'd been watching over him his whole life. It was too much, too fast, too heavy. What do I do? He asked again, his voice small. Itachi reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, a simple gesture, but one that carried more warmth than anything Naruto had felt in years. You keep going, he said. You keep fighting. You become strong enough that no one can take anything from you ever again. And when the time comes, you stand with your family and face whatever comes together. Naruto looked up at him, at this brother he'd never known he had, and felt something shift inside him. Not just the Sharingan, not just the power, something deeper. Something that felt like belonging. Together, he repeated. Itachi nodded. Together. The days following the Akatsuki encounter passed in a blur of intensified training and heightened awareness. Naruto found himself looking over his shoulder constantly, expecting pale skin and purple ringed eyes to appear in every shadow. Itachi had assured him that the village was safe, that ANBU patrols had been increased, that the stranger wouldn't dare show his face again so soon, but the fear lingered like a cold hand on his spine. Kakashi noticed the change in him immediately. "You're distracted," he said during one of their dawn training sessions, lowering the practice kunai he'd been using to demonstrate a throwing technique. "Your form is sloppy, your reactions are slow, and you've deactivated your Sharingan 3 times in the last 10 minutes because you're not focusing." He crossed his arms, that single visible eye sharp with concern. "What's going on?" Naruto hesitated. He trusted Kakashi, had come to trust him deeply over the weeks of training, but Itachi's warning about secrets had burrowed deep into his mind. The Akatsuki rarely attack openly. They prefer to manipulate, to divide, to isolate. Was talking about what happened the same as giving them power? "Naruto." Kakashi's voice softened. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. I can't help if I don't know what's wrong." So Naruto told him. About the stranger with the purple eyes, about Itachi's intervention, about the Akatsuki and their interest in him and his newly awakened bloodline. The words came out in a rush, tumbling over each other, and by the time he finished, Kakashi's expression had gone very still. "Akatsuki," he repeated quietly. "Here, in the village. He said they'd been watching me. Watching all of us." Naruto's voice shook slightly. He knew about my Sharingan, about my connection to the Uchiha. He knew things he shouldn't have known. Kakashi was silent for a long moment, his visible eye distant with thought. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "This changes things. If Akatsuki has taken an interest in you specifically, not just as the Nine Tails container, but as someone with Uchiha blood, then you're in more danger than we realized." He paused. "I need to speak with the Hokage. And you need to be even more careful than before. No more wandering alone at night. No more going off on your own. If you have to move around the village, do it in crowded areas, during daylight, with people you trust." Naruto nodded, the weight of the warning settling onto his shoulders like an extra layer of clothing. "What about training? Should we stop?" "Absolutely not." Kakashi's eye hardened. "If anything, we need to train harder. You need to be ready, Naruto, ready to face whatever comes. The Akatsuki won't wait forever, and when they move, they'll move fast." They resumed training with renewed intensity, pushing past exhaustion into something beyond it. Naruto's Sharingan stayed active for longer stretches now, nearly 10 minutes at a time before the strain became too much and he was starting to integrate its predictive abilities into his combat style naturally. He could dodge Kakashi's slower attacks now, could see the paths of thrown kunai before they left his teacher's hand, could even begin to anticipate the patterns of Kakashi's famous tactics. "You're learning," Kakashi said with genuine approval after a particularly intense sparring session. "Fast. Faster than most Uchiha I've trained with." "I had good teachers," Naruto said, and meant it. That evening, the Hokage summoned him. Naruto walked to the Hokage tower with a knot in his stomach, knowing what was coming. Kakashi had undoubtedly reported their conversation, and now the old man would want to hear it from Naruto himself, would want to assess the threat and decide how to respond. Hiruzen was waiting in his office, pipe in hand, his lined face grave. Beside him stood a figure Naruto didn't recognize, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, wearing the standard ANBU uniform but with the mask pushed up to reveal features that were beautiful in a severe, dangerous way. "Naruto," Hiruzen said gently. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit down." Naruto took the chair across from the desk, his eyes flicking to the woman. She watched him with an intensity that made his skin prickle, not hostile, but assessing, like she was cataloging every detail of his appearance for future reference. "This is Yugo Yuzuki," Hiruzen said, indicating the woman. "She's captain of the ANBU division assigned to your protection. Given the new threat, we're increasing security around you significantly." Naruto blinked. "Protection? You mean bodyguards?" "Discreet ones," Yugo said, her voice cool but not unkind. "You won't see us, but we'll be there. Watching. Ready to intervene if necessary." The idea of being watched constantly, even protectively, made Naruto's skin crawl. He'd spent his whole life being watched by people who hated him, who saw him as a monster. The thought of more eyes on him, even friendly ones, felt suffocating. "Is that really necessary?" he asked. "I've been training with Kakashi-sensei. I'm getting stronger. I can protect myself." Hiruzen's expression softened with something like pity. "Naruto, you're 12 years old. You're talented, and you're working hard, but you're not ready to face Akatsuki alone. No one your age would be." He leaned forward. "This isn't about locking you away or treating you like a child. It's about giving you the space to grow without constant fear. Knowing that someone has your back, that's not weakness. It's strategy." Naruto wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat. Because part of him, the lonely part that had always wished someone would watch out for him, was relieved. Grateful, even. He'd spent so long fighting alone that the idea of having allies, real allies who would protect him, felt almost like a dream. Okay, he said quietly. I understand. Yugao nodded, seemingly satisfied, and pulled her mask back into place. I'll coordinate with Kakashi. We'll ensure your training continues without interruption, but with additional security measures in place. She glanced at Hiruzen. With your permission, Lord Hokage, I'll begin the arrangements. Hiruzen waved his consent, and Yugo vanished in a blur of motion, leaving Naruto alone with the old man. She's good, Hiruzen said, almost to himself. One of the best. You'll be safe with her watching over you. Naruto nodded, then hesitated. Lord Hokage, the man who approached me. He mentioned my connection to the Uchiha. He knew about Mikoto. About what she did. Hiruzen's expression darkened. Yes. That's the most troubling part of this development. The fact that Akatsuki knows about your bloodline means they have sources inside the village or they've been watching you closely enough to deduce it themselves. He paused, tapping his pipe against the ashtray. Either way, it means the secret may not hold much longer. And when it breaks, things get complicated, Naruto finished. Sasuke will find out. The whole Uchiha clan will find out. Everyone will know what I am. Everyone will know who you are, Hiruzen corrected gently. Not what? You're not defined by your bloodline, Naruto. You're defined by your choices, your actions, your heart. Never forget that. Naruto wanted to believe him. He really did. But as he left the Hokage Tower and walked home through streets that suddenly felt full of watching eyes, the weight of his secrets pressed down on him like never before. 3 days later, everything fell apart. It started small, a whispered rumor in the academy, passed from student to student like a contagious disease. Did you hear about Naruto? They say he's got Uchiha blood. They say he's been hiding it for years. By lunch, the whispers had grown to open stares, pointed fingers, questions that Naruto couldn't answer and couldn't escape. By the time afternoon classes began, Irika had been summoned to the Hokage's office, leaving the class under the supervision of a substitute who clearly had no idea how to handle the escalating tension. Naruto. Sasuke's voice cut through the chaos, and the classroom fell silent as the Uchiha heir rose from his seat and walked toward the back of the room where Naruto sat frozen. Outside. Now. It wasn't a request. Naruto followed him into the hallway, his heart hammering so hard he could feel it in his throat. Sasuke led him to an empty classroom at the end of the corridor, slid the door shut behind them, and turned to face him with eyes that burned with barely contained fury. Is it true? Sasuke's voice was low, controlled, more dangerous than any shout. The rumors about you having Uchiha blood. About you being connected to my family. Is it true? Naruto's mouth opened, but no words came out. He couldn't lie, not to Sasuke, not after everything, but the truth would shatter whatever fragile understanding existed between them. He could see it in Sasuke's eyes, the way they searched his face for answers, the way hope and fear warred in their dark depths. Sasuke, he started. Don't. Sasuke's voice cracked. Don't lie to me. Everyone's been lying to me my whole life, my father, my brother, the whole village. If you know something, if you're part of whatever secret they've been keeping, I need to know. I deserve to know. Naruto looked at him, really looked, seeing for the first time not the rival, not the prodigy, but the boy beneath. The boy who carried the weight of his clan's expectations, who lived in the shadow of a legendary brother, who had no one he could truly trust. You do deserve to know, Naruto said quietly. But it's not my place to tell you. It's not my secret. Whose secret is it, then? Sasuke demanded. My mother's? My father's? Itachi's? He stepped closer, close enough that Naruto could see the sheen of moisture in his eyes. Tell me, Naruto. Please. The word please broke something in Naruto. He'd never heard Sasuke beg for anything. The proud Uchiha heir didn't beg. But here, in this empty classroom with the weight of lies crushing down on both of them, Sasuke was pleading. I can't, Naruto whispered. I'm sorry. I can't. For a long moment, Sasuke just stared at him. Then something in his expression shifted, hardened, closed off, became the mask he wore for the rest of the world. Fine, he said flatly. Keep your secrets. But don't expect me to trust you ever again. He turned and walked out, leaving Naruto alone with the echo of slammed doors and the taste of ash in his mouth. That night, Naruto couldn't sleep. He lay on his futon, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Sasuke over and over in his mind. The hurt in his eyes, the way his voice had cracked, the wall he'd built between them in the space of a few minutes. They'd never been friends, exactly rivals, competitors, two boys circling each other in the confined space of the academy, but there had been something there. A connection neither of them understood, pulling them together even as circumstances pushed them apart. Now that connection was severed, and Naruto didn't know if it could ever be repaired. A soft knock at his window made him jerk upright. He crossed the small apartment and pulled back the curtain to find Itachi perched on the fire escape, his dark hair ruffled by the night breeze, his expression unreadable. Naruto slid the window open, and Itachi slipped inside with the silent grace of a cat. "You know," Naruto said quietly. "About today. About Sasuke." Itachi nodded, settling onto the edge of Naruto's desk. "I heard. The rumors are spreading faster than anyone anticipated. By tomorrow, the whole village will know something is different about you." "Different?" Naruto laughed bitterly. "That's one word for it." Itachi studied him with those dark, perceptive eyes. "How are you holding up?" The question caught Naruto off guard. He'd expected warnings, strategies, plans for damage control. Not concern. Not someone asking how he was doing in the middle of all this chaos. "I don't know," he admitted. "Sasuke hates me now. The whole village is going to have another reason to stare at me like I'm a freak. And my mother," his voice caught. "My mother is out there somewhere, and I still haven't met her. I still don't know if she even wants to meet me." Itachi was quiet for a moment. Then he said, very softly, "She does. More than anything." "How do you know?" "Because I've watched her for 12 years. Itachi's voice held a depth of feeling that Naruto had never heard from him before. "I've seen her pause at the market when you're nearby, just to catch a glimpse of you. I've heard her cry at night when she thinks no one is listening. I've found her in your old baby clothes, holding them like they're made of glass." He paused. "She loves you, Naruto. She's just been too afraid to show it." Naruto's eyes burned, and this time he didn't try to stop the tears. They fell freely, carving paths down his cheeks as 12 years of longing finally found release. "I want to meet her," he whispered. "I need to meet her. Even if she can't, even if she doesn't, I need to see her. Just once." Itachi nodded slowly. "I can arrange that. But it has to be done carefully. My father," he stopped, something flickering in his eyes. "Fugaku is complicated. He knows about you, though he doesn't acknowledge it. If he found out we were meeting behind his back, it could cause problems." "Problems like what?" Itachi was silent for a long moment. The Uchiha clan is not happy with the village leadership. There are tensions, old resentments, new grievances. My father has been vocal about his dissatisfaction. If your existence became public knowledge, it could be used against us. Against my mother. Against you." Naruto thought about that, about the political machinations that had shaped his entire life without his knowledge or consent. It wasn't fair, none of it was fair, but fairness had never been part of the equation. "Just tell me when and where," he said. "I'll be there." Itachi studied him for a long moment, then nodded. 3 nights from now. The old shrine in the Naka River forest. Midnight." He rose, moving toward the window. "And Naruto, be careful. There are those who would love to see this meeting go wrong. Trust no one but those who have proven themselves worthy of trust." He slipped out into the night, leaving Naruto alone with his tears and his hope and the terrifying, exhilarating prospect of finally meeting his mother. The next 2 days were a nightmare. The rumors had spread beyond the academy, infecting the village like a plague. Naruto couldn't walk down a street without hearing whispers, seeing pointing fingers, feeling the weight of 1,000 curious and hostile stares. The Uchiha district became a fortress overnight, with clan members shooting him looks that ranged from suspicious to openly hostile whenever he passed too close. Sasuke avoided him completely. When their paths crossed at the academy, the Uchiha heir looked through him like he wasn't there, his dark eyes empty of anything but cold distance. It hurt more than Naruto wanted to admit. Even Irika seemed at a loss, his usual warmth tempered by the political reality of the situation. "The Hokage is working on damage control," he told Naruto privately. "Just stay low, keep your head down, and try not to engage with anyone who provokes you. We'll get through this." But Naruto wasn't sure they would. The hatred he'd faced his whole life had been bad enough, at least then he'd known why, had understood that it was about the fox inside him, about fear of something they didn't understand. This was different. This was personal. This was people looking at him and seeing not a monster, but a liar. An imposter. Someone who'd stolen something that didn't belong to him. By the 3rd night, he was ready to scream. The Naka River forest was dark and quiet when Naruto slipped into its depths, moving through the trees with a stealth that would have impressed even Kakashi. The old shrine stood in a clearing near the water's edge, its wooden beams weathered by decades of rain and sun, its roof sagging slightly under the weight of years. A figure waited in the shadows of the shrine's entrance. Naruto's heart stopped. She was beautiful, more beautiful than in his dreams, more real than any vision could capture. Dark hair fell past her shoulders, touched with silver at the temples. Pale skin glowed in the moonlight. And her eyes, those dark, lovely eyes, held the weight of 12 years of longing and grief and desperate, aching love. Mikoto Uchiha. Naruto. Her voice broke on his name, and she took a step forward, then stopped, as if afraid to come closer. My son. My beautiful son. Naruto couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Could only stand there, staring at the woman who had given him her blood, her power, a piece of her very soul, and then disappeared from his life, leaving him alone to face a world that hated him. You came, he finally managed. I didn't think I wasn't sure. I would have crawled through fire to be here. Mikoto's voice trembled. I've waited 12 years for this moment. 12 years of watching you from a distance, of wanting to hold you, to tell you how much I love you, to explain. She stopped, pressing a hand to her mouth. There's no explanation good enough. No excuse that makes up for abandoning you. I know that. But I need you to understand. Why? The word tore out of Naruto, raw and wounded. Why did you leave me? Why did you let me grow up alone, thinking I didn't have anyone, that no one wanted me? I was so alone, and you were right there, and you never, his voice cracked. You never even tried. Mikoto's face crumpled. She took another step forward, then another, until she was close enough to touch. Her hand rose, hovered in the air between them, and then gently, hesitantly, cupped his cheek. Because I was a coward, she whispered. Because the people who were supposed to protect me, my husband, my clan, the village, told me that if I claimed you, if I acknowledged you as mine, you would be in danger. That your father's enemies would target you. That the Uchiha's political opponents would use you as a weapon against us. Tears streamed down her face, hot against his skin where they fell. I chose safety over love, Naruto. I chose to keep you hidden and protected rather than risk your life by claiming you. And I've regretted it every single day since. Naruto wanted to stay angry. Wanted to hold on to the hurt that had defined his whole life, the loneliness that had been his only constant companion. But looking into her eyes so like his own when the Sharingan awakened, he couldn't find the rage. It wasn't your fault, he heard himself say. The choices, they were made to protect me. I get that. I don't like it, but I get it. He leaned into her touch, feeling the warmth of her palm against his cheek. I wish I'd known. I wish I'd had someone. Mikoto pulled him into her arms, holding him with a fierceness that stole his breath. She was smaller than he'd imagined, but her embrace felt like home, like the home he'd never had, the safety he'd never known. You have someone now, she whispered into his hair. You have me. And I swear on everything I am, everything I have, I will never let you go again. They stood like that for a long time, mother and son in the moonlight, years of separation dissolving in the warmth of an embrace that should have happened long ago. When they finally pulled apart, Mikoto's eyes were red-rimmed but shining with a light Naruto had never seen before. Tell me about yourself, she said, leading him to sit on the shrine's worn steps. Tell me everything. What you like, what you hate, what you dream about. I've watched you from a distance, but I want to know you. All of you. So Naruto talked. About ramen and pranks and his dream of becoming Hokage. About Irika's kindness and Kakashi's training and the friends he was slowly, painfully making. About the loneliness that had defined his childhood and the hope that kept him going anyway. Mikoto listened to every word, her eyes never leaving his face, drinking in the details like a woman dying of thirst. When he finally ran out of words, she smiled a real smile, warm and beautiful, and reached out to brush his hair from his forehead. You're so like him, she murmured. Your father. Minato. You have his stubbornness, his determination, his way of making people believe in you. Her smile faded slightly. And you have Kushina's spirit. Her fire. Her refusal to give up, no matter how hard life gets. Naruto thought about the two people who had given him life, his birth parents, who had died to protect him, and felt a complex tangle of emotions. Gratitude. Grief. A strange, distant love for people he'd never known. Do you miss them? He asked quietly. Minato and Kushina? Mikoto's eyes grew distant. Every day. Minato was, she paused, searching for words. He was the first person who ever made me feel like more than just an Uchiha. Like I could be just, me. And Kushina, a soft, sad smile crossed her face. Kushina was my dearest friend. The sister I never had. When she died, a part of me died with her. And then you gave part of yourself to me. Naruto touched his chest, feeling the chakra that pulsed there. Uzumaki and Uchiha, two bloodlines intertwined. Why? Why would you do that? Mikoto met his eyes, and in the moonlight, he saw the Sharingan flicker to life, the same pattern he saw in his own reflection, the same spinning kamas around dark pupils. Because you were dying, she said simply. The Nine-Tails extraction had damaged you, left you with a chakra imbalance that would have killed you within hours. Kushina's bloodline gave you life force, but it wasn't enough. You needed something else, something to stabilize the chakra, to give you control. She touched his cheek again. I had that something. And giving it to you was the easiest choice I ever made. Naruto's eyes burned with tears again, but these weren't tears of grief or anger. They were tears of something he'd never felt before, being wanted. Being loved enough that someone would sacrifice part of themselves to save him. Thank you, he whispered. For everything. Mikoto pulled him close again, holding him against her heart. Thank you, Naruto. For surviving. For thriving. For becoming someone worth sacrificing for. She pressed a kiss to his hair. You are the best thing I ever did. The best thing I'll ever do. Never forget that. They stayed at the shrine until nearly dawn, talking and crying and laughing and learning each other. By the time the sky began to lighten, Naruto felt like he'd known her his whole life, and in a way, he had. She'd been there all along, watching over him, loving him from a distance. Now she was here, in front of him, real and warm in his. I have to go, Mikoto said reluctantly as the first birds began to sing. Fugaku will notice if I'm not home soon. She cupped Naruto's face in her hands, memorizing his features. But this isn't goodbye. We'll find ways to meet, to talk, to be together. I promise. Naruto nodded, not trusting his voice. Mikoto leaned forward and pressed a kiss to his forehead, soft, lingering, full of everything words couldn't express. My son, she whispered. My beautiful son. And then she was gone, slipping into the trees like a ghost, leaving Naruto alone at the shrine with the sunrise painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and the warmth of her love still burning in his chest. He was halfway back to the village when he sensed the presence. It was subtle, just a flicker at the edge of his awareness, a shift in the chakra around him, but his Sharingan-enhanced senses caught it immediately. Someone was following him. Someone skilled enough to stay hidden, but not quite skilled enough to avoid detection entirely. Naruto's heart hammered, but he kept walking, pretending not to notice. His mind raced through possibilities: Akatsuki, A and Bu, someone from the Uchiha clan sent to observe him. Any of them could mean danger. He was passing through a particularly dense patch of forest when the attack came. A figure dropped from the trees above, kunai flashing toward his throat. Naruto's Sharingan activated on pure instinct, and he saw the path of the blade before it completed its arc, twisting aside just enough to let it pass harmlessly past his ear. His counterattack was instinctive, a palm strike to the attacker's chest that sent them stumbling back, surprise flickering across features hidden behind a dark mask. Not bad, a voice said, and Naruto's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. Had heard it 3 nights ago, in the empty street outside his apartment. The attacker straightened, pulling off the mask to reveal pale skin and purple-ringed eyes. The same man from before. The Akatsuki spy. You're faster than you look, the man said, sounding almost impressed. And your Sharingan activation was nearly instantaneous. Remarkable for someone so young. Naruto dropped into a fighting stance, heart pounding. What do you want? You, mostly. The man smiled, that same cold, empty smile from before. But not to hurt you, despite what you might think. We have mutual interests, you and I, enemies in common. People who would see you controlled, contained, used. I don't have anything in common with you. Don't you? The man tilted his head. You carry the 9 tails, a power that the village uses as a weapon while treating you like a monster for containing it. You carry Uchiha blood, a heritage that the clan denies and the village fears. You've been lied to your whole life, manipulated, kept in the dark about who you really are. He stepped closer, and despite every instinct screaming at him to run, Naruto found himself frozen. We could change that. We could give you answers. Power. Freedom from the lies that have bound you since birth. Naruto's Sharingan blazed, the pattern sharpening as emotion flooded through him. I don't need anything from you. I have people who care about me. People who tell me the truth. Do you? The man's smile widened. Did they tell you about the Uchiha coup? About the plans to overthrow the village leadership? About how your precious mother's husband is plotting treason as we speak? He laughed softly. No, I thought not. They keep secrets, Naruto. They always have. The only difference between them and us is that we're honest about it. The words hit like physical blows. Coup? Treason? Naruto's mind raced, trying to process what he was hearing. Fugaku Uchiha, plotting against the village? It couldn't be true. Could it? You're lying, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? The man shrugged. Believe what you want. But when the truth comes out, and it will, soon remember that I offered you a choice. Remember that there was someone willing to tell you the truth, even if you didn't want to hear it. He vanished, melting into the trees as suddenly as he'd appeared, leaving Naruto alone with his terror and his doubts and the crushing weight of yet another secret he couldn't escape.